The night didn't explode all at once. It unfolded in pieces, quiet at first, almost unnoticeable, like something slipping through cracks before anyone realizes the house is already compromised. Earlier that day, King Harris was in his usual energy online, loud, confident, performing for the camera like nothing could reach him. To viewers, it looked like attitude. To him, it felt like control. But control only works when you understand what you're dealing with, and King didn't. Behind the scenes, things were already moving. He didn't know it, but his routine wasn't private anymore. His movements weren't private. Even his small changes, delayed plans, last-minute cancellations, shifting locations were being noticed. Not by fans, not by random viewers, but by people who were paying attention in a very different way. And the worst part, someone close enough to him was feeding it. Not loudly, not obviously, just enough to matter. A detail here, a timing update there. Small pieces that, when put together, formed a full picture of his day. King thought he was just living his life. Someone else was mapping it. That night when things finally escalated, there was no dramatic warning, no loud buildup, no obvious sign that something was wrong. The house was normal on the surface, lights on, quiet rooms, the usual stillness that comes with a late evening where nothing seems out of place. But somewhere in that silence, something had already shifted. King noticed it first in fragments. A sound that didn't match the house settling, a pause too long in the background noise, a feeling he couldn't explain but couldn't ignore either, the kind of instinct people dismiss until it's too late. He tried to brush it off. Then the small things started stacking. A flicker in the hallway light that wasn't normal, a device glitching for a second and reconnecting, a sound from another room that stopped the moment he focused on it. Each detail alone was nothing. Together, they became something else entirely. That's when his energy changed. The same person who had been joking earlier, posting like nothing mattered, suddenly wasn't performing anymore. The tone shifted. The confidence cracked just enough for something real to slip through. And then came the message. Not on social media, not publicly, direct. Whatever it said, it didn't calm him. It broke the illusion that this was still online beef. Because from that point on, King wasn't trying to entertain anyone. He was trying to understand what was happening in his own house. His voice dropped. His movement slowed. He started checking rooms twice, then 3 times. The camera that was still rolling caught it all, the shift from loud confidence to controlled fear happening in real time. And then, the moment everything crossed a line. A sound from inside the house that didn't belong there. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough to confirm what he had been trying to deny. Someone was there. That's when panic replaced confusion. He started calling out. First jokingly, like his mind was still refusing to accept reality. Then louder, then faster. His phone was still in his hand, but the performance was gone now. No audience, no jokes, no attitude, just urgency. Yo, hello. No answer. That silence did more damage than any response could have. Because silence meant awareness. It meant presence. It meant whoever was there didn't need to respond. At that point, everything became fragmented, movement, footsteps, abrupt changes in direction. The kind of chaos that doesn't look organized from the outside, but actually is on the other side. King moved through his own house like it didn't belong to him anymore. And then the fear became audible. Not in shouting, in breathing, in the way his voice broke when he spoke into his phone again, asking for help. Not for attention this time, not for content, but for survival. That's the moment the internet later replayed over and over again. Not the chaos itself, but the realization that there was no performance left in him. Just fear. And somewhere in the middle of it all, the most disturbing detail emerged later from the footage analysis. Whoever entered didn't rush. They moved like they already knew the space, like they had seen it before, like they didn't need to guess where anything was, which changed the entire interpretation of what happened, because it stopped looking like a random break-in and started looking like something planned, something studied, something that had been waiting for the right moment, not to react to King Harris, but to reach him when he was finally alone. It happened in seconds, so fast that people watching the leaked footage later said they didn't even have time to process it. No time to breathe, no time to think, just confusion, then fear. One moment, King Harris was online like always, bold, loud, laughing, posting like nothing in the world could touch him. The kind of energy that made him feel untouchable, like he was living in a different reality where consequences didn't exist. And the next moment, everything shifted. His voice cracked, his energy dropped, and the same person who was just talking like a superstar was now pacing inside his own house, whispering into his phone with a fear so raw, so unfiltered. Fans didn't even recognize him. "Bro, please call me back. Somebody in here. I need help now." That wasn't content. That wasn't a joke. That wasn't for views. That was panic. And the internet felt it instantly. Because King Harris, the son of T.I., was not supposed to sound like that. Not ever. Inside the house, something felt wrong. The lights flickered, the security system glitched, motion sensors triggered without reason, and somewhere in the background, too faint, too close, there was a sound that didn't belong in a home that was supposed to be locked, secured, protected. A shuffle, then silence, then another sound. And that's when everything changed. Because King wasn't just scared anymore. He was realizing something was already inside. When the audio leaked, the internet exploded. But what people didn't know yet was that this wasn't random. This wasn't a break-in. This wasn't kids messing around. This was intentional, targeted, calculated. And according to early reports circulating behind the scenes, this was tied to retaliation, linked to individuals allegedly connected to circles associated with affiliates of 50 Cent. Not him directly, but people around him. People who don't ignore disrespect. People who don't forget names. People who respond differently when they feel crossed. But the most disturbing detail wasn't even the break-in itself. It was what came before it. Because this didn't start that night. It started weeks earlier. Slowly, quietly, like a system being tested before a full breach. For months, King had been building an image online. Loud confidence, fearless attitude, constant pressure to prove he wasn't just the son of someone famous. To fans, it looked like entertainment. To critics, it looked reckless. But to certain people watching from a different world entirely, it looked like a kid talking too much in a language he didn't understand. King believed the internet was the battlefield. He believed words were harmless. He believed energy online stayed online. But he was wrong. Dead wrong. Because in the real world, some people don't argue. They observe. They wait. They remember. And they respond when the timing is right. It started small. A few warnings no one could fully prove. A car parked outside his location too long. A stranger's comment at a gas station, "Careful what you say out here." Anonymous messages telling him to slow down. But King brushed it off. He thought it was paranoia. He thought it was hate. He thought it meant he was winning. What he didn't realize was that he was being studied. And worse, someone in his own circle was leaking information. Not everything, just enough. His routines, his timing, his habits, his blind spots, the kind of information that only comes from someone inside. Someone trusted, someone close enough to open doors without suspicion. That's what made the night so dangerous. Because when the incident happened, security logs later revealed something chilling. The entry point wasn't forced. No broken locks. No smashed windows. No alarms triggered at entry. The door had simply been unlocked. And King never leaves that door unlocked. Ever. So investigators went back. And what they found changed everything. At exactly 3:17 p.m. earlier that day, someone had briefly accessed the door. Not enough to enter. Just enough to disable the lock. Just enough to leave a gap. And the camera caught it. A figure in a hoodie. Moving fast. Comfortable. Familiar. At first, King thought it was his friend Dree. But when shown the footage again, he shook his head immediately. That's not Dree. Dree taller than that. A pause. Then the question that shifted everything. Who is that? That question opened the first real crack in the investigation. Because the person in the footage wasn't just some stranger. It was someone King knew. A cousin. A distant relative he barely spoke to. Someone the family had quietly warned him about before. Someone with financial problems. Someone with history. Someone always standing one bad decision away from chaos. But even that wasn't the full truth. Because that cousin didn't arrive alone. Security footage from earlier in the day showed something even darker. A vehicle with tinted windows. The cousin wasn't driving. Someone else was. A man later identified as having known associations with individuals connected to affiliates of 50 Cent's extended circle. That detail changed everything. Because now it wasn't just suspicion. It was coordination. Planning. Access. Intent. The cousin had a problem. Debt. Pressure. People asking for money he didn't have. And when people like that get cornered, they look for exits, even if it means opening doors they should never touch. And that's what happened. A deal was made. Access in exchange for relief. Information in exchange for debt clearance. A way out for him, at the expense of someone else's safety. King had no idea. Not then. Not in that hallway. Not when he froze mid-step hearing movement inside his own home. Not when his voice broke calling for help. Not when he whispered into his phone like it was the only lifeline he had left. Bro, somebody s in here. But the real horror wasn't just that someone got in. It was that they had been watching him long before they entered. Studying him. Timing him. Waiting for the exact moment he would be alone, distracted, unprepared. And when that moment came, they moved. Inside the house, King finally stopped. He heard it again. Closer this time. Deliberate. Controlled. Not random. Not accidental. Intentional. He turned slightly, phone raised like it could protect him, like light could fight off whatever was in the shadows. Yo, wait, somebody in here. His voice wasn't loud anymore. It wasn't confident. It wasn't performative. It was human. And that's when the footage leaked. And everything exploded. But the footage didn't show the full truth. It only showed the fear. Not the setup. Not the betrayal. Not the chain of events that led to that exact moment. Because by the time King realized what was happening, it was already too late. Someone had opened the door. Someone had given access. Someone had traded trust for escape. And now the consequences were walking through his house in silence. And the worst part, King still didn't know why. Not fully. Not yet. Because the real reason this happened wasn't just disrespect. It wasn't just ego. It wasn't just online energy. It was something deeper. Something older. Something tied to people he didn't even know he had stepped into conflict with. And as the night unfolded, one truth became impossible to ignore. This wasn't a random moment of chaos. This was a message. And King Harris had just learned the most dangerous lesson of his life. Some worlds don't exist on the internet. They exist in silence. And once you step into them, there's no warning before they step back into you. The moment King stepped into the living room, everything in his world collapsed into a single point of realization. The air was wrong. Too still, too heavy, too controlled. And there it was on the table. An object placed with intention, a bullet casing, a printed screenshot from his own live stream, not random, not scattered, arranged like a message meant to be read in silence. For a second, King didn't move. He just stared. Then his voice broke through the quiet. How they get in, how they know I'm home. It wasn't anger. It wasn't performance. It was confusion mixed with fear. The kind of fear that hits when you realize your privacy was never private to begin with. And deep down, something worse was forming. This wasn't random. Someone didn't just find him. Someone guided them to him. Someone close. Someone trusted. Someone who smiled in his face while quietly dismantling his safety from the inside. Hours later, when King finally spoke to his father, he expected chaos. He expected yelling, questions, panic, maybe even anger. But what he got instead was something far colder. Calm, controlled, almost unsettling. T.I. looked at him for a long moment before speaking. I knew it was coming. King froze. What do you mean you knew? T.I. exhaled slowly, like the weight of something he'd been holding for years finally slipped through. I've been telling you, he said quietly, the people around you aren't all your people. That was the first fracture in King's understanding of what had really happened. Because this wasn't just a break-in. It wasn't just retaliation. It wasn't even just a warning. It was something prepared. And according to investigators, the most disturbing truth wasn't the cousin who opened the door. It was what came after that. Because the break-in wasn't done by one person. It was coordinated. 2 points of entry. 2 roles. 1 inside access and 1 technical breach. Someone disabled the system from within. Someone who knew exactly how to erase digital protection without triggering alarms. Someone who didn't just open a path. They cleared the entire system. When detectives asked King a simple question, everything changed. Who knows your schedule better than anyone? King answered instantly. My friends, my team, my family. But the detective shook his head. No, not who knows your schedule. He leaned in slightly. Who knows your system? Your Wi-Fi, your cameras, your locks, your routines, your backups. The room went silent. Because now there was only one answer. Someone who lived close enough to touch everything without suspicion. That name came up slowly, almost reluctantly. A crew member known as Switch. Not a celebrity. Not a relative. Not someone from King's inner circle by title. But someone, who had become part of it over time. Helpful. Always available. Always around when something needed fixing. Wi-Fi issues, Switch handled it. Camera resets, Switch already knew the login. Small repairs, Switch was already inside the house. He wasn't loud. He wasn't suspicious. He was invisible in plain sight. And that made him dangerous. At first, King refused to believe it. "No," he said immediately. "Switch wouldn't do that. You got it wrong." But the investigators didn't argue. They just showed him the logs. Timestamp after timestamp. System access records. Network disable history. Camera blackout windows. And one undeniable pattern. 2 hours before the break-in, the entire security system was manually disabled from inside the network. With the correct password. A password only 2 people had. King and Switch. King's hands started shaking. His voice cracked. His denial weakened. "Bro, now that don't make sense." But the evidence didn't care what made sense. Because it was already there. And it was already too late. Then came the second confirmation. Switch's keycard was used that afternoon. At the exact same time, the cousin approached the back entrance. Not coincidence. Synchronization. Coordination. A handoff. One unlocking the physical path. The other disabling the digital barrier. 2 people. 1 plan. King felt his body go weak. Not because of danger, but because of betrayal. Because Switch wasn't just someone around. He was someone trusted. Someone present during arguments, during victories, during private moments. Someone who knew where the spare keys were hidden. Someone who had been inside King's life long enough to study it like a map. And King had never questioned it. Not once. But the deepest shock came after the house was cleared. After the intruders were gone. After silence returned. Because investigators found something else. Something hidden. Something intentional. Taped beneath King's bedroom dresser. A folded piece of paper. No signature. No markings. Just one sentence. 7 words that changed everything. "He's closer than you think." The room went cold when they read it aloud. Because now the story wasn't just about a cousin. Or a break-in. Or a warning. It wasn't even about Switch alone. It was about something bigger. Something unfinished. Something still inside the circle. Still nearby. Still watching. Still feeding information. And still unidentified. King sat there in silence, staring at nothing. Everything he thought he understood about loyalty, about trust, about safety, was gone. And what replaced it was worse than fear. It was doubt. Because now every face felt questionable. Every voice felt uncertain. Every friendly moment felt like it could be a cover for something else. And somewhere in the background of all of it, one truth lingered heavier than the rest. This wasn't just a break-in that happened in the past. This was a system that was still active. And whoever was behind it wasn't done yet. The internet thought it had already seen the worst of it, until the truth started unfolding in pieces no one was ready for. By the time the footage, messages, and leaked screenshots circulated across every platform, the story wasn't just about a break-in anymore. It had turned into something colder, something calculated, something that made even seasoned commentators stop mid-sentence. Because now it wasn't just someone got into King Harris's house. It was someone was watching him before they ever stepped inside. And that realization hit harder than the fear itself. Inside the Harris household, the moment those new details surfaced, everything changed. The object on the table, the warning message, the strange timing of the intrusion, it all stopped looking random and started looking designed. Like a plan that had been running long before King ever noticed anything was wrong. King kept repeating the same question, almost in disbelief. How they knew I was home, how they knew. No one answered immediately, not because they didn't know, but because the answer was worse than the question. Eventually, the truth came out in fragments, not from panic but from investigation, from logs, from timestamps, from access records that didn't lie. And what they revealed made the entire situation collapse inward. It wasn't just outsiders. It wasn't just strangers. It was inside access. That's when the first name surfaced, someone no one expected at first, someone who had always been around, always present, always useful. A figure who didn't stand out because he was never supposed to. They called him Switch. To King, Switch wasn't a threat. He was support. The kind of person who fixes things without being asked, who knows passwords because he's helping out, who resets Wi-Fi, checks cameras, and moves through a house like he belongs there. That's what made it dangerous. Because belonging can look like loyalty until it is. The investigators didn't even need long to connect the two. TS, system logs told the story better than anyone could. The security network had been accessed manually, inside the home network itself, hours before the break-in. No forced entry digitally. No hacking from the outside. Just an authorized access. A password that should have only been known by one person and one other. Switching. King stared at the report like it didn't belong to his life. His voice cracked as he tried to reject it. Nah, that's not him. You got it wrong. But the timeline didn't care about feelings. It was precise, cold, unforgiving. And it only got worse. Because Switch wasn't acting alone. Surveillance review showed a second presence that same afternoon. A cousin, someone loosely connected to the family, someone already known for drifting on the edge of trust. He had been inside the perimeter right when systems were being altered. Two separate people. Two coordinated actions. One outcome. And suddenly, the break-in stopped looking like an incident and started looking like an operation. King's world didn't just shake, it tilted. Because if inside access had been compromised twice, then someone else had to be guiding it. Someone with enough information to coordinate timing, disable systems, and predict exactly when the house would be vulnerable. That's when the investigators dropped the detail that made everything go quiet. A third presence. Not on camera clearly. Not confirmed at first. But visible in patterns, in timing gaps, in communication traces that didn't fully disappear. Someone else had been feeding information. Someone who knew more than they should have. And that's when a new message surfaced, one that didn't come from inside the house or from security logs, but from a nearby doorbell camera that caught fragmented audio before the incident. The voices were distorted, but one line was clear enough to freeze everyone watching. "You sure he's alone?" A second voice answered without hesitation. "Yeah, his own people said it. He's good tonight." His own people. Not just one betrayal. Not just one leak. A system of trust had been compromised. By the time King heard that recording, the fear on his face changed. It wasn't just shock anymore. It was realization. The kind that hits when safety stops being a given and starts feeling like something that was never real in the first place. His phone buzzed again that night. Unknown number. No threats, no insults. Just a photo. And in that photo, Switch, the cousin, and another familiar face sitting inside a car together. King froze. Because that third face wasn't random. It was someone from his inner circle. Someone who had been in videos, in posts, in rooms, in conversations. Someone who always said the same thing. "I got you, you safe with me." His name was Milo. And that was the moment everything collapsed. Not because Milo was just involved, but because the timeline made him central, the connector, the one who knew schedules, the one who knew when King would be alone, the one who could confirm access points and confirm timing. Everything pointed back to him. And when the realization hit, it didn't feel like betrayal and isolation. It felt like orchestration. But the most disturbing part wasn't even that Milo was involved. It was why. Because when investigators dug deeper, they didn't find money transfers that explained it cleanly. They didn't find simple debt or random opportunity. They found history. Old tension, old humiliation, old moments King didn't take seriously, but someone else never forgot. And that's when the narrative shifted from confusion to something far darker. Revenge. Not spontaneous, not emotional. Patient. Waited out. Built over time. That explanation alone sent the internet into chaos. Clips of Milo resurfaced, old live streams, old moments standing next to King, old interviews where he laughed, joked, reassured him. Now every frame looked different. Every smile felt reinterpreted. Every "I got you" sounded heavier in hindsight. The internet didn't just react, they dissected everything. TikTok accounts slowed footage down frame by frame. Twitter threads mapped timelines like crime boards. Fans tried to match clothing, vehicles, timestamps, even background noises. And the more they analyzed, the worse it looked. Because it wasn't messy. It was coordinated. Even industry voices started weighing in, carefully at first, then more openly. Comments about trust, betrayal, and watching your circle began circulating everywhere. No one said everything directly, but everyone understood the implication. And then came the moment that silenced speculation for a second. A post from T. No explanation, no names, no direct statement. Just an image. A lone wolf surrounded by shadows. No caption. But nobody needed one. Because in that silence, the message was louder than anything said so far. The story didn't feel finished after that. It didn't feel resolved. It felt like something had only just been exposed halfway. Because now the question wasn't just what happened. It was how long it had been happening without anyone noticing. And more importantly, how many people were still close enough to make it happen again. The internet thought it finally understood the situation, until a single post flipped the entire narrative again. It started with T. A new image, a sheep, no explanation at first, no context, just that image sitting on his page like a warning disguised as silence. Then the caption dropped. Some of y'all ain't who you pretend to be. And just like that, the conversation exploded all over again. Blogs didn't even wait to interpret it properly. They ran with it instantly, splitting into theories like a live wire had just been dropped into water. Some said it was directed at King's circle. Others insisted it was about the betrayal inside the family. A few even argued it was a message aimed outward, toward whoever had been feeding information behind the scenes. But whatever the interpretation, one thing was clear. T wasn't just reacting anymore. He was sending signals. And then came something that pushed everything into a different level of chaos. 50 Cent. No statement, no clarification, no explanation. Just a single post. Eyes. That was it. 2 eyes, nothing else. And somehow, that was enough to detonate the internet again. Within minutes, the comments were everywhere. Why 50 watching like that? He knows something. This deeper than we think. Bro is seeing everything unfold in real time. It didn't matter that there was no confirmation of involvement. The timing alone was enough to send speculation into overdrive. People weren't just watching the situation anymore. They were trying to decode who was watching them. Journalists scrambled next. Calls went out to everyone. T, King, family members, associates, friends, even names loosely connected to the circle. No responses. No statements. Just silence. And in situations like this, silence doesn't calm anything down, it makes everything worse. Blogs filled the gap immediately. Inside source CLA, MS third person still active in breach. King HARRIS inner circle under investigation. T prepares private response after Sun S security breach. Round 2 fears grow among FANS. Every headline escalated the situation further, turning uncertainty into full-blown paranoia. But while the public was focused on outside speculation, something else was happening behind the scenes. Milo's name started surfacing in whispers first, then louder. At first, it came from anonymous accounts claiming to be close to him, people who said the story wasn't as simple as betrayal for money or pressure. One post read, "Y'all don't know the half. King been disrespecting Milo for a minute." Another followed quickly. "He wasn't forced into nothing. There was a reason." And then the line that changed everything. "Ask King what he said about Milo's girl." Not even who. Not even who. Fans replayed it over and over, trying to read his lips, trying to fill the gap, trying to guess what Milo couldn't finish saying. Not even a friend. Not even family. Not even security. And before anyone could process it fully, another clip surfaced. Shorter, darker, only a few seconds long. Milo again. But this time, it wasn't a warning. It was a moment of chaos. A shadowy figure rushing into frame. A sudden grab from behind. Milo turning shocked. Wait. And then nothing. The screen cut to black. No audio. No explanation. Just a single caption that appeared underneath the clip like a final warning, stamped into reality. Round 2 begins. That was all it took. The internet didn't just react, it collapsed into speculation. Because now the story wasn't about betrayal anymore. It wasn't about a setup. It wasn't even about revenge. It was about control. Someone was clearly still in motion. And someone else had just been removed from the board. Every theory exploded at once. Did Milo get silenced for speaking too much? Was he trying to undo what he helped create? Or was he never in control to begin with? The most terrifying part wasn't even the footage. It was the implication behind it. That whatever had happened inside King's world wasn't finished. Not even close. Back in the chaos of online discussion, the tone shifted fast. Blogs stopped calling it a break-in story and started calling it something else entirely. A chain reaction. A circle collapse. A betrayal network. And every new label made it feel more serious. More structured. More intentional. Because one thing was becoming clear through all the noise. This wasn't random anymore. This was organized. And King, whether he realized it or not, was standing in the center of it. The footage of Milo whispering became the most analyzed clip online. Every frame slowed down, every SH. Ado enhanced, every word dissected like evidence in a case no one had official access to. But the scariest detail wasn't what he said. It was how he said it. Like he wasn't just warning King. Like he was running out of time himself. That realization hit harder than anything before it. Because it raised a question nobody wanted to answer out loud. If Milo was scared, who was he scared of? And that question led straight into the second wave of panic. Because suddenly, the idea of betrayal inside King's circle stopped feeling like theory. It started feeling like reality. Old names resurfaced again. Switch, the cousin, unknown associates, friends who had been around too often, people who knew too much, people who were always just there in the background of every situation. Now every one of them looked suspicious. Every one of them looked involved. Every one of them looked like they could be the missing piece. And that's when the internet broke into full-scale investigation mode again. Screenshots were pulled apart. Old live streams rewatched. Background figures zoomed in on. Voices compared. Timelines rebuilt. People weren't just watching anymore, they were trying to solve it. But no matter how deep they went, one thing kept coming back. Milo's unfinished sentence. Don't trust nobody, not even. That gap became the most dangerous part of the entire story. Because it suggested the betrayal didn't end with outsiders. It suggested the danger was still inside the walls. And while the internet spiraled, one final detail surfaced that shifted everything again. A timestamp from the same night. A separate camera angle. A brief distortion in the footage showing movement near Milo, just seconds before he disappeared from frame. Not random movement. Not confusion. But coordination. And that changed the interpretation completely. Because it meant Milo wasn't just warning King. He was being actively contained while trying to speak, which turned the entire situation into something far more chilling than anyone wanted to admit. This wasn't just betrayal. This was containment of information. And that meant the story wasn't slowing down. It was escalating. Vast. By now, the internet wasn't asking what happened. It was asking something far more urgent. Who is still in the circle right now? Because if Milo could be silenced, then nobody in King's life was truly off limits. And that's where everything stands. A warning cut short. A disappearance captured on camera. And a system of trust that no longer feels like trust at all. And the worst part, the next move hasn't even happened yet.